What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in the last video, you saw me blow the V6 up in the Magnum. Finally, the plan today, we're gonna drop everything out of this engine bay out. Don't need any of it. Don't need any of the power steering, don't need any of the reservoirs, don't need anything. Nothing in here, none of the AC lines, any of that. All that stuff, all the suspension is coming off the front of this today. Dropping it out should take me an hour to 2 hours to do that. Then we'll roll the SCAT pack stuff over, and that should be a little bit quicker. It doesn't have any power steering. It has electric power steering. It doesn't have the hydraulic power steering, so it should be a little bit quicker to do that. The drivetrain is now out of the Magnum. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull the alternator, AC compressor, power steering pump, all of those were good. That's some stuff I could sell. Also, I'm gonna remove the transmission from the engine because the transmission shifted extremely well, and there was a receipt inside the car. The tranny was recently rebuilt, so the transmission I could also sell. You could see where the coolant reservoir was just overflowing forever, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just like crackly or something. The only difference that I have seen so far is this hole right here is small. The Hellcat pretty much comes out to a triangle, and so does a SCAT pack for the airbox. Really doesn't matter. And then also there's no holes right here for the chiller cooler. If you were gonna, do a Hellcat swap, you'd have to put riv nuts right there to hold the heat exchanger that goes right there. And then over here, this is just a little bit different. Not very much, but just a little bit different, just something to note. All of this structural stuff in here is pretty much the same. This, well, I mean, it's probably close to the same. They might not have used high strength steel in this car. I'm not exactly sure. But over here on the Hellcat, there's two holes right there. It really doesn't mount anything. Just moved the 6.4 V8 from under its home under the shelf to under the Magnum. So now we need to figure out what we need to do. I pretty much didn't do any measuring. I just kind of guesstimated everything. Looking at it, it looks just like the Hellcat. I mean, I tore two of these cars apart, or two Challengers apart, and I mean, everything on here practically looks the same. There are a few differences, like I've stated before, but nothing that I have noticed that really would warrant this thing not fitting in there. So what I'm gonna do now is lower this down, make sure everything lines up, and kind of go from there. But the one thing I really do like about the newer swaps, this thing had hydraulic power steering, and hydraulic power steering is just so outdated. But the new stuff is all electric, so we're good to go there. I'm gonna have to change the oil on this thing because I never did change the oil after I got it. I just, you know, it had 43,000 miles, I think, and I just started it up. Sounded really good, and I pretty much I wasn't even able to drive it because the rear wheel, all the arms on it were busted. So I just pulled it out, used it for what I needed, and now I'm using this part of it for this cool Magnum wagon. So we're gonna have a 6.4 Magnum wagon. Now bolted into the Magnum. Everything's bolted in. Everything fit extremely well. This is probably the easiest swap I have ever done. So everything just bolts in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the dash, pull the front seats, and then I have the old dash shell from the Challenger up there, the SCAT pack, and up there I have the bad dash from the Hellcat I'm going to temporarily use that. But before I stick it in the car, I have to bolt that pad to that frame, and I think it'll bolt in. I'm not exactly sure. I've never done this before. So far, since everything's bolted in and all of the firewall and everything looks the same, I don't think I'll have a problem. Also, what I'm going to be doing is swapping all of the HVAC over. I have all of the Challenger HVAC. It should bolt in as well. This older Magnum air box, or the intake box for the HVAC, doesn't have a filter. So I ordered a new one so I could put a cabin air filter in. It's so much nicer breathing clean air. So I'll do that as well once that comes. I'll be able to do that after everything's put together. And then I could pull the wiring harness. This is the old wiring harness from the car for the engine bay. I'm gonna pull this out, put the, where's it at? Where do we put it? Okay, over here. This is the harness from the Challenger. It will go right in. I test fit the Challenger dash and the Magnum. This is happening. It bolts directly in. I thought it would, wasn't sure. Everything is exactly the same. There are a few little studs down here for the Magnum shifter. I may end up having to cut those off. I may not. I'm not exactly sure. The Challenger steering column over there. So we have paddle shifters and a nice steering wheel. Got the Magnum all the way stripped down to the firewall. The reason I did this was because everything in this car and outside the car was super gross. You can see it's extremely dusty there, and there's like soda and all kinds of junk just spilled, and it just is disgusting. So the pad underneath that goes onto the firewall, it's like an insulator, sound insulation, heat insulation. It looked the same, so I pulled that off. I'm gonna utilize the one from the Challenger, and after that, I will bolt the brake pedal, gas pedal, the new parking brake pedal out of the Challenger, all the Challenger HVAC, the new dash, or the used dash that has the airbag blown. I need to find a new one or a used one that doesn't have an airbag blown in it, and then I could just go from there. This car, I didn't notice until I started setting stuff on the roof, and I really like it. There's no sunroof on it right now. To put a passenger seat in, these on the passenger side for some reason are different, just a little bit. So they have these little stands, these little stand brackets, and the seat will bolt to this, but I have to drill one hole in the back because there's a pin that goes through it on the Challenger seat. On the newer seats, but I could just cut the pin off, but I'm just going to drill the hole. So either way, if you guys are doing this, whatever you want to do, a Challenger seat will bolt into this. Probably the Charger seat would directly bolt into it. It's probably the exact same. It's probably just the difference between 4-door and 2-door, but the seats will both bolt in there. So I'll have the nice bolstered seats, and I'll probably just put a new airbag in that one seat and then sew up the bolster. So yeah, you can see how gross this thing was in here and everything like that, but it is getting nice and clean. I have been cleaning as I've been going and going further back and further back. But yeah, it looks really, really good with that newer style dash in there. So that's gonna wrap up this episode of the Magnum build. This build is going extremely quick. So everything pretty much just bolts in. There are a few differences, which they aren't big enough to even really throw any concern at. One difference I'm gonna have to do is just open this up right here. That circle hole needs to be a triangle so the air box can get enough air in. I don't know if it's just the V6s, but they had a round hole in the older ones, and the newer ones are a big triangle. Over here, there's a hole, but other than that, everything in the front pretty much, well, everything in the front just bolted in. All the wiring and everything just clips in. All the suspension bolts up. The one difference, I guess, is the airbox up here for the cabin doesn't have a filter, so I ordered a new one with a cabin air filter because I don't want anything, I want clean air, fresh air. So other than that, the front is pretty much done. I'm just waiting to go up to Denver. I need to get a set of brake lines because this had no ABS, and I need to put ABS so everything works. But other than that, I could pretty much put everything back together. Just running brake lines, you don't want to really have much in the way because brake lines are kind of a pain to run in the first place. The tranny's bolted in. People were wondering about the 8-speed. I'm pretty sure this is an 8-speed. It just bolts right in. The trans tunnel is the same. The dash also bolts in. I need to get a new dash pad because this one was the one out of the Hellcat. It had the bag blue on the passenger side because the car was wrecked. But for now, it's okay. And the dash, once I get a new one, I'll put it in. But it has electric power steering now, paddle shifters, push start, sat nav, everything. Just, you know, bolts right in. I'm gonna swap the whole wiring harness, which I'm not exactly sure. I could look and I might not even have to swap it, but I'm gonna swap it because I need the body control module that goes on that side. Also, this center console just goes in because you need the shifter, and that's part of the center console, and it looks a lot better than the Magnum one or the Charger one, I think. I need to detail the actual inside of the car. I need to bring a vacuum over here, vacuum all this junk out of here, clean the carpet. I'm gonna put the Challenger front carpets in. Then once all that's nice and clean and done, and the wiring harness is in, which I'll probably do in the next video, I could bolt the seats in. The seats will be completely bolted in. All this stuff will be finished. One difference is you can see over there, the dash and the door panels are just a little bit off, which I could remedy that pretty easily if I redo the door panels. But for right now, this is gonna work. This swap will go extremely easy and it should run and drive pretty quick. One difference I think there might be, I haven't done it yet, the drive shaft. I might need a drive shaft from a Charger instead of a Challenger. I'm not exactly sure if it's any longer wheelbase. Underneath it kind of looks a little bit longer, but that drive shaft is extremely long, and the tranny's a little bit longer. So we'll see. I need to unbolt the fuel tank, the drive shaft, all the rest of the stuff out of the Challenger and the other bay, and then start putting it in here. Once I could actually hold the drive shaft up there, I'll know if I need to get a different one or not. But it is really cool actually seeing this thing with a newer interior in it. It's very surprising. I had like a 5% doubt that this stuff would work, but now that it's in there, it looks so good. And the one thing I do need to do, the windshield is cracked. When I do get a new windshield put in here, I need to order a newer Charger windshield so it has all the stuff. So when I bolt the Challenger mirror with the auto dimming and all that stuff to the windshield, it has all the correct cutouts and everything for it. And then I'll have a brand new windshield. It won't be all gross and cracked and stuff, but I'll lose my smog sticker, which this thing will actually pass emissions, which is kind of funny. So we are pretty much done with this episode. Hopefully you guys really liked this episode. It went pretty quick. I got the engine in there. Everything just bolts in. So if you guys were wondering about swapping a Magnum, I think I have created the new go-to swap for 2020. The Magnums I think are coming back because now you could pretty much, if I could swap this in here, literally you could buy a wrecked Hellcat Charger for 18 to 25 grand, and you could buy one of these for under 5 grand. So I mean, you could have a really dope 700 horsepower one of these with all the Charger stuff. If I had a Charger, it would be a lot better because they're actually a 4-door, which makes everything a little bit easier, but everything would bolt in. You would have a 700 horsepower complete interior Hellcat Magnum. So now I have a Scat Pack Magnum. I think in the next coming months, I will probably get another one of these, another 2008. I don't think it matters if it's an older one. I just didn't like the front end. I'm also going to be putting the newer front end on this eventually, and then I may end up selling the Scat Pack one. But after, you know, a few months, maybe 5 months down the road, I'll get another one, do a whole Hellcat Magnum, as well as all the suspension, all the exterior. I want to do the whole exterior with the actual newer doors and the quarter panels. That will be a lot bigger project, but I could swap all the drivetrain first, and then I'll have a newer, like 2018/19 Magnum Hellcat, which is actually funny because when I go to register this car, I only paid $100 for this car. So this is going to be the cheapest car that I have to register. It'll be, registration, I think is only going to be like 30 bucks on it, which is funny. So we'll have the cheapest car to register, probably the cheapest car that I have to insure. I guess the FC is probably pretty cheap, maybe not, but this thing will be really cheap and it'll be almost 500 horse, which will be awesome. So if you like the videos, make sure to click the subscribe button, throw a comment below, give this video a thumbs up, and as always, see you guys tomorrow.